Consider This with Carol Schrader is made possible with support from Bass & Associates, First Data Resources, and by Nebraskans for Public Television. Consider This with Carol Schrader, a news and information program recorded on the campus of the University of Nebraska at Omaha. From the Fireside Lounge in the Milo Bale Student Center, here is your host, Carol Schrader.
Hello and welcome once again to Consider This. A tragic thing happened in an Omaha high school just this week. A couple of young boys, 16, got into a fight and one ended up dead. One was defending himself, took the other one down. The first one hit his head. It was just too much, and the boy died of head trauma. We worry about violence. We worry, or should worry, more about how we get to that point with our kids, or how they get to that point. With me today is someone who could probably address that, and he is the author, with his wife, Linda, John Friel, PhD, of The 7 Worst Things Parents Can Do. John, welcome to the show. You're here. Legion Health has brought you in to work on their spirituality conference,
right,
or the hospital workers, chaplain, and so on. You know, it's very strange you would come at this time when the headlines are blaring. Columbine, you were called on a lot to talk about.
Yes, I did. I did
schools.
a lot of commentary on that too.
What do you say when we look for an answer, whether it's something as tragic as Columbine or just a singular incident like this? What do you say? You don't know the kids. You don't know about them.
Right. Well, you know, with the Columbine thing, what we've learned since then, after we've gotten to know a little more about the families and the parents and so on, is that they seem to be awfully disconnected from their children. They didn't seem to know what was going on. They didn't know that there were guns being, shot off shotgun barrels in the bedroom and shrapnel being made in the garage. I mean, that doesn't happen in healthy families. There was some sort of disconnect going on there. I also think that the kids in Columbine, Klebold and Harris, were, from all accounts, were pretty horribly emotionally, verbally tortured by the jocks on campus, and I'm very concerned about why that happened and why the parents of those athletes didn't pull them out of sports and discipline them, because that's what I would have done if it was one of my kids torturing some other kid. So I think there's a lot of parental neglect going on in the country, basically.
Or a lot of denial.
Especially in middle and upper middle class families. There's a lot of neglect and lack of leadership and lack of parenting.
Well, that kind of gets us to these 7 worst things parents can do. And I will tell you that I opened this book with great trepidation.
Yes, everybody does.
I mean, and it's not a scary book. It's not a scary book.
Thank you.
I'm going to list the 10 things, and they may seem very, I was thinking of, yes, you shouldn't pull your children's fingernails out. Okay, well, I know I don't do that.
Right.
But almost that would be easier. I mean, you'd say, okay, you don't do that, right? I don't do that, so I'm a good parent. Now, this isn't to make you feel bad, but I'm going to list these 7 things right now.
Okay.
And then we're going to talk about them. These are the 7 worst things you can do as a parent. Baby your child. Put your marriage last. Push your child into too many activities. Could have guessed that one. Ignore your emotional or spiritual life. Be your child's best friend. Fail to give your child structure, and expect your child to fulfill your dreams. Now let's start with the first one, since they start as babies. As they grow up, babying your child.
Well, I mean, removing a struggle from a child's life is a perfect way to completely cripple them and to make them really angry and disappointed about life. And that's where a lot of the violence is coming from in so-called really nice, good, stable middle-class families. Kids are given too much and they're not allowed to struggle. They're not given the gift of having to struggle for things. And so when they get out into life and life doesn't give them everything they want, they get really disappointed and really angry and really depressed. It's creating an incredible number of narcissists is what's going on. And it's crippling kids. I mean, kids are supposed to have to learn how to deal with life, and life is supposed to be an exciting challenge, not some disappointing depressing experience for people.
You mean you're not supposed to let your kid have every pair of designer clothes they
Right.
want? And, wow,
Right,
that's
and you're
a
not
shock.
supposed to pay off their credit card debts when they run them up when they're 18 and 19 years old. You're supposed to let them figure out how to do that. You're not supposed to tie their shoes when they're 6. You're not supposed to do their homework for them.
But how do you know? The trick is knowing what is babying or enabling them to continue in the immature mode, and
Right.
what's just
Well, I
what's
mean-
pushing them too hard.
Well, I think that there's some basic things that kids are supposed to be able to do at certain ages. Like,
And we think we're all familiar with that, but I found out that I really didn't have as good a memory since I have one child who was adopted at age 7, and I hadn't gone through all the baby level things and read all the baby books that all the mothers did
Right.
about, boning up on all that. I thought my memory would serve me right. It doesn't necessarily
well, I
do
think
that.
I think it's helpful to talk to other parents and to read books and to get some input. I mean, there are all kinds of free parent support groups in most communities in the United States, and I mean, if you're wondering whether your 7-year-old should be tying their own shoes or not, you can certainly take a poll in the neighborhood and find out how many 7-year-olds are not tying their shoes still, and you'll find out that they're all tying their shoes.
I've found over the years that there is a group of, I talk primarily to mothers, I guess, and dads maybe talk to dads, but there's a mix, that there's 2 camps. There are those who yak and ask about everything. I mean, that are very into a kind of a network or a loose neighborhood group, and there are those that it's almost showing their imperfection. And I noticed that in a lot of very professional women. I'm not saying this is a rule, but that would show some chink in their armor because they're trying to hold it all together. And
Right, and that just doesn't work. I mean, human beings, whether you have 10 PhDs or not, are vulnerable and flawed, and we all need each other. We need to talk to each other, and people who aren't willing to do that are acknowledging to professionals in my field that there's something wrong with them, because there is. I mean, every human being needs other human beings.
that's for sure. So you don't baby them, you don't, but there's so many things that come up in a day. How much do you help with the homework?
Very little. I mean, I've got clients who actually sit down with their kids and do the whole homework process with them. And I'm just wondering, I ask them, why is it you're doing that? I mean, what are you teaching them? You're teaching them how to not do anything on their own. How to only, I mean, if you've got a kid who's stuck with an algebra problem and they've worked on it for a half an hour and they still can't do it, and they bring it to you and say, geez, I'm really stuck with this part of the formula, can you help me? Yeah, sure, I'd help you. But if I'm going to sit down with you and do every single problem with you, that's ridiculous. I mean, they're not doing that with my work.
Darn. Okay, let's move on. I'm going to skip one of these because I'm going to clump these
Okay.
a little differently if it's okay. Not
Sure.
that yours don't make sense,
No,
okay?
that's fine.
Push your child into too many activities. Boy, do I think, I know parents that have no life whatsoever.
Well, there are kids that
except-
have no life either. There are kids that are 6 years old carrying daytimers. I mean, 6 years old and carrying
No,
daytimers. Yeah,
no.
absolutely. Yeah.
You mean when they get on the phone with their cell phone,
With
amazingly,
cell
with
phone
their
and their
kids?
daytimer with their schedule, because their
I don't know.
schedules are so complicated and so full that they can't keep track of what they're doing. And the basic principle is that one extreme is not a cure for the other extreme. And that's how you can define whether something's
I'm
pathological.
going to get into extremes later because that's
I
fascinating
mean, that's
and I
where
never
the
thought of it.
pathology is. So if you've got a family where kids aren't involved in anything and they're just aimlessly wandering around the neighborhood getting into trouble, that's one extreme. The other extreme is kids that are so over-scheduled, they have no time for family life, they have no time to breathe or dream or hope or think or connect with each other or have friends, and they're tired and they're burnt out and they're getting sick. That's unhealthy. And it's our job as parents to step in and say, you've got 3 things or 4 things here that you're doing. You're going to have to pick one and stop doing it. And if you don't, then we'll have to pick one for you. And then the parent has to be able to handle the child being mad for a while. Because you can't be a parent if you can't have people mad at you now and then.
Oh, yeah, I don't have any problem with that.
But a lot of
They
parents
get
do.
mad.
A lot
They
of
get
parents
mad.
do. A lot of parents are trying to be their kids' best friends and trying to be
Well,
liked.
that'll move us to the
Trying to be
the next
liked,
one.
and yeah, and you can't be liked all the time if you're going to be a parent.
But you know, we see movies and things. You know, the stories that really pull at your heartstring is either the children that are totally estranged from their parents, or vice versa, for life, and then get back together. Or we see, you know, these parents that are just sort of, you know, they're just intuitive to everything, and they're just waiting, and the child comes up and pours their heart. And it's like that's some sort of. They go shopping together. I mean, that everything is, you know, we have to be friends. And we say that about our partners in life, you know, our spouses.
Oh, absolutely.
But somehow I think almost we've equated kids to being
Spouses.
not spouses, but
Oh,
on
yes,
that
we,
some
oh, yes,
sort
we
of.
have equated them with being spouses, and that's the problem. And that's one of the reasons that marriages in this country are such a disaster, is that parents, it's a lot safer and a lot easier to make a child into a spouse because it's not a threat, because the adult has all the power. It's a lot more of a risk to have a relationship with an adult and make it work.
Because you can't have all the power.
Because you can't have all the power. So what it is it's in my, you know, in family systems, it's called seduction of the child.
Seductive, and I don't mean that in a sexual sense. But
No, but it's just as bad. It's almost as bad as sexual seduction, because the parent is using their power and using the nature of the dependent relationship of the child on the parent, and then turning around and leaning on that child for emotional support and companionship. And it feels good to the child.
they're important.
They're important and needed and useful, and it robs them of their childhood and seduces them into a role that's going to damage them later on. I've never seen a child in that role grow up and be able to have healthy adult relationships until they work it through in therapy. Never.
So we're substituting, and that gets me on.
When you turn your
Well, that gets me up to. I'll go back to put your marriage last.
right. Yes, National Institute of Mental Health did a study a few years ago. In fact, it was reported in Dear Abby or Ann Landers, so it was just a great little piece of research. And they found 50 parents who had raised kids into healthy adulthood and asked them for pointers on parenting. And one of the top 3 pointers of 10 or 11 that they put in this article that all the parents agreed on was, put your marriage first. That child-centered marriages make neither happy children nor happy marriages. Because the marriage is, in a structural sense, is the structure of the whole family. When the marriage is failing or dead or numb, then the whole family's in trouble. And children know that. I mean, we get kids in family therapy, and they're talking about how they wish their parents would have a life and go out on a date, or if their parents do go out on a date, how exciting it is to see them do that and to see them have their own life. In
So you're
addition
saying
to
too many kids, maybe the ones that are overactivityed or out buying all those expensive jeans that are baggy, are not seeing their parents being lovers, friends,
partners,
an entity, a cohesive unit.
Right.
And therefore, when they try to parent, they're obviously not going to parent as a unit either. I mean, that's kind of hard to.
And when those kids grow up, they have never seen what a good marriage is. They've seen a dead marriage all those years.
But you know, I would guess, I mean, I know that in this workaday world where parents are going off in 2 different directions, and it makes it real difficult, and priorities were sort of raised. I came from the women's movement era and up, where you know, I have my priorities, and I want a career, and I did a career, so it's kind of maybe makes it even harder than to be on one track a lot of the time.
Well, yeah, but it depends on what you mean by that. It doesn't make it harder to have for the kids to know that your spouse is the most important person in your life, not the kids. And to know that there are parts of your relationship that are sacred that the kids are not privy to, that whether you have a lock on your bedroom door or you go on a date every Saturday night without the kids and go on a vacation once a year, even if it's just over a weekend without the kids. Kids need to know that there are parts of that relationship they cannot get into. And that makes them feel secure, first of all, and then it lets them know that this relationship is special, and then they know how to do that when they grow up. Oh, how do I make a relationship special? Oh, I know, I saw Mom and Dad do it.
You said it makes them secure.
Yeah, it makes them secure.
And sometimes we go to the other extreme. You talked about extremes, that in order to make kids secure, we have to, whenever we're not at work or we're not doing this, that, we have to be there for them.
But that doesn't make them secure. That makes anxious, neurotic children that aren't secure. They're only secure, those kinds of kids are only secure if you're hovering over them all the time. I mean, what kind of security is that they can't go out into the world and do things with their friends, or go out and get a job, or go out and live in an apartment on their own? I mean, what kind of security is that they've been taught? None.
We move on.
Okay.
Okay. This one surprised me but didn't. I mean, I just haven't ever seen it on a list like this, or a book about parenting or whatever. One of the worst things you can do for your children as a parent is ignore your emotional or spiritual life. I
Right.
guess emotionally I knew that, but spiritual life. And
I
what's
think
the
emotional and
difference?
spiritual are very closely related. I mean, spirituality is about the ability to have a relationship with things beyond yourself, whether you believe in a personal God, or in
Just a greater power.
or whatever. But spirituality is that ability to connect with something beyond us, and you can't do that unless you can connect with yourself first, and then with other human beings second. Then that's how you learn the skill of being spiritual. The other thing about spirituality is that it's, people think of it as going to the mountaintop and praying alone. That is one part of it. The other part is connecting with other human beings and caring about them, and showing care and concern and love and guardianship and so on. I mean, you look at what Mother Teresa did with her life. She didn't spend most of her life alone on a mountaintop praying. Her spirituality was expressed through her work every day, which was pretty down and dirty work. That's spirituality. I mean, it's something that everybody does and everybody's capable of.
I heard somebody say once too about parents and their spirituality, and how important it is for children to see that, is that the parents are the kind of the authority figure in the family, and
Right.
they're the executives, as
Right.
you call them.
Uh-huh.
But it is good for children to see that the parent needs to look to something
Yes,
greater.
that the parent
a
is willing to
parent-
be humble.
The parent needs to be humble, contemplative,
Yep.
think about things, think things through,
And to
think about the
depend on others,
consequences.
and to
Right.
rely on somebody beyond ourselves. When we take our cases to another psychologist for consultation, I mean, we've been therapists for 25 years. I would never stop taking my cases to another psychologist for consultation, because that's what good psychologists do. Bad psychologists don't. If you want to do good, bad, black and white,
They have all the answers.
they have all the answers. Yeah, and that's by definition not a good therapist.
But we are, in a sense, and I'm not oversimplifying, but we are children too. I mean, we have
yeah.
those child characteristics.
Well, in that
it's part
sense.
of our all the facets of
Right.
us.
And the need to rely on others or rely on a higher power is very important. Yep.
It's part of the balance.
It's part of power too. It's telling kids what healthy power is instead of what it means to be a perpetrator or a victim.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Being humble doesn't mean being a victim.
No, not
or
at
being
all.
persecuted,
No,
or being
not one bit.
and all the things. Because I have a teenager. There's a lot of poor me. It just sort of comes with
Yeah, right.
with testosterone and,
Yes.
and estrogen and thing. I think, but and so they see themselves as victims. But if they see themselves in people that have a healthy relationship, even with the higher power at work, well, yeah, they're the boss, but this is expected of me, and I can deal with this, or God expects this of me, and I can deal with this. This is a good thing.
Yeah.
That they cope maybe a little better.
Right.
Okay. Fail to give your child structure.
Structure or impulse control was the full title of that chapter. And what we do in this country a lot now is
Well, I go like this, and I know the kids are mentally going like this. Click, click, click.
what we're teaching them to do by being so emotionally impulsive ourselves is we're teaching them to not be able to distinguish between their feelings and what they should do about them. So I did a talk this morning in the Legion Hospital to the physicians there called "I'm disappointed. I think I'll shoot you," which is
I get what you're saying.
which is exactly what happened in Atlanta. That kid's girlfriend broke up with him. He was disappointed, and he went and got a gun and shot everybody. I mean, when we start to believe that we have these big emotions and therefore we ought to act on them, I think we're in real trouble, because everybody has those emotions. There's nothing unique about feeling that way. But acting them out is something that we don't do in a civilized society, and that's something that we are doing more and more in this culture, and that's what scares me.
Well, when I was talking about the click, 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 I was talking about that even in the simplest ways in our life, we don't like something, we act out, we click the channel.
Right, exactly.
I mean, we don't wait and see. We're not patient. I mean, we don't say, let this kind of settle, you know.
Yes, that's right.
We don't think about it. I mean, we kind of, obsess isn't the right word, but we take that emotion and let it get bigger and bigger and bigger. We don't know how to step away from it, and I think that that's something that we're teaching our kids a lot. I know that's probably one of my biggest flaws is, and I have a kid with ADD, so that's probably the worst thing to do.
But I think that the way you put that step away from it, I think that's exactly what we have to teach kids to do. And a lot of the adults we work with are not capable of doing that themselves yet, and that's what they're working on in therapy, is how to step away from those emotions so they aren't acting them out all the time. And
not deny the emotion, but just kind of take a look at it.
You feel it and you identify it, but then you don't act it out. You don't go get a gun and shoot somebody just because they embarrassed you or hurt your feelings or something.
But how does that tie in with the concept of structure?
Because that is a description of internal structure. Someone with internal boundaries and internal structure is able to contain their emotions within that structure and say, oh, this is my feelings, and this over here is what I can do about it. Gee, I better not do this because that will hurt other people or wind me, you know, I'll wind up in jail. I'll choose to do this instead.
And not only that, but if you don't do that once or twice, then you have nothing to reflect back on your own personal experience. That, you know, yeah, this is worse than that other time, but I remember that other time I kind of waited and, you know, maybe that'll work this time. We'll try that. I mean, this is not a formal thought process. I mean, always a formal thought process.
Actually, it is, but it's oftentimes quiet and it's not conscious. But it can be taught consciously, and that's the thing, is that people can be taught that very easily, consciously, and then they internalize it. I mean, that's how structure is internalized in the first place. If parents don't provide external structure for kids, like a regular bedtime, and, you know, this is what you get to eat for dinner, and no, I'm not going to make 10 different meals for 10 different kids, that sort of stuff. When kids know they can bump up against something, then they develop internal structure, and then they become competent and powerful and respectful and all those good things.
And this can work for me. Or if I don't like it, well, maybe tomorrow I have what I want. Or,
yeah, or maybe there's another way I need to go about it. Maybe I'm going about it the wrong way instead of just I'm going to give up and fail and then blame everybody else.
Yeah, I'm going to 2 days in advance when we go to the store, I'm going to say, gee, could we get this for dinner? It might be a longer process.
Right.
But it goes back to that you don't need that instant action.
Yes, right.
Okay, expect your child to fulfill your dreams. That seems like an easy one. I think we can look at JonBenét Ramsey. I know people that knew JonBenét's mother when she was competing in beauty contests. And that's the one that comes to mind just in
Well, and
in
you know, I
recent
mean,
years.
the frustrated, I had a biology professor in college who wanted to get into medical school and he didn't make it, so he saw biology, being a biology teacher, as a sign of failure. And I'm sure if he'd had kids, he probably unconsciously would have tried to push one of them into medical school, even if they didn't have the ability to do it or the capacity or the interest. I mean...
But that seems so obvious. I mean, what are the more subtle ways that we...
Well, those are obvious, except those are extremely common. I mean, you see it in sports and athletics. You see fathers and mothers out there pushing their kids into various things for all kinds of personal agendas, whether it's, you know, my parents didn't have me involved in any activity, so I'm going to make sure you're involved in 5 or 6. Well, I don't want to be involved in 5 or 6, but you have to be. I mean, that's pushing your child into too many activities, but it's also having them play out your own dream, too.
And it's almost not allowing them to be their own child, because when you were a child or when you had a dream, I mean, it's not necessarily you as an adult. It might be you as a child.
Yes, right.
You know, so you're not even getting out of that mode.
You know, another one, I don't know if this is any more subtle, but it's pretty common, is the parent has an unhappy marriage and isn't willing to admit it, but unconsciously there's a piece of their marriage that makes them very unhappy, and so they push their son or daughter, they encourage them in certain relationships that maybe the son or daughter don't even want to be in necessarily. Like, you know, you're dating so-and-so, oh, she's really wonderful, or he's really great, you know, why don't you go out with them some more? I mean, that sort of thing should never be said to a child in the first place, because it's not a parent's place to say anything like that.
Oh, well, that's deadly anyway.
Right.
Isn't it? Isn't it always?
Well, but you'd be surprised how many kids wind up, who come into therapy as young adults, saying, you know, not only did I go out with this person, I married them. And now I'm realizing that I only did it because, you know, to make mom happy or to make dad happy. Yeah, it happens all the time.
I guess I always think of the rebellious teenager that goes in the opposite direction.
But the opposite of sick is sick.
Well, that's true. And now that's what I want
180 degrees from sick is still sick. So you push your child into that kind of extreme rebellion, and you've pushed them right into the very flames you just kicked them out of. I mean, they're going to get burned either way.
Any extreme,
Yeah.
not good.
Right.
Now we have just a couple minutes left, and if you had one thing, say parents are just sort of sitting there in the mush going, I'm tired, I'm exhausted, I don't feel like I'm doing the right thing, and you could say one or two things they could do.
Yeah, right.
What
Okay.
would
Well,
it be?
that book is filled primarily with positive things to do.
Right, and it really is a good read. But if you just had to say a couple things, yeah.
One thing, and I seriously mean this, is that if every parent in America required their children and themselves to sit down to dinner just not 7 nights a week, 4 nights a week, with the television set off for at least 35 or 40 minutes, and ate dinner together and talked and made eye contact and discussed things and had conversations, which are all becoming lost arts, I think we'd probably reduce the mental health problems by about 25% right there. But when you think about the amount of leadership and courage and guts and emotional health that it will take for parents to do that and to not let their children run the household. So the other piece of advice is pick one thing, doesn't matter what, doesn't matter whether it's the dishes or, you know, curfew or bedtime or whatever, pick one thing and stick to it for 6 to 12 months and stop looking for dramatic cures and realize that improving your family is a day-to-day thing. It's day-to-day ordinary stuff. It's not big dramatic things.
Well, that's kind of dramatic in itself.
Right.
Think about it that way. I want to thank you, Dr. John Friel, co-author with his wife Linda, of The 7 Worst Things Parents Can Do. Pick it up. I'm going to, because this isn't my copy, it's Jim Bacon's, but I'm going to get one. Thank you very much, and thank you for joining us on Consider This.
Thank you.
Consider This with Carol Schrader is made possible with support from Bass & Associates and First Data Resources.